Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here and to share some of the stories and projects of the students and educators I have the privilege of working with every day in my work at NYU. 3 years ago, I arrived at NYU and founded the Music Experience Design Lab as a creative space where young people, educators, nonprofits, cultural institutions, and the technology industry could come together and research and design and develop new technologies for music making, learning, and engagement. And we do that together collaboratively. And in getting started with our design work, we often start by looking at some of the traditional metaphors, some of the traditional instruments, and looking at what might they afford, what possibilities might they constrain, what might be new opportunities for creative expression. And we often start with traditional instruments like the piano. And how many of you have played the piano? Right there, yeah. How many of you continue to play today? A little fewer hands. Some of you continue to do, or maybe you play the guitar. These are, yeah, there we are. We're seeing the rocking it out in the audience there. Yeah, these are wonderful time-tested interfaces. They allow a lot of creative expression, but they take a lot of time to learn. And that's because they're complex. They're necessarily complex for professionals, for experts, because that complexity affords a wide range of creative expression that we might not have otherwise if those complexities weren't there. Yet for some people, those complexities might be barriers. And we often see students start these instruments, but then fall off in motivation because of those complexities. Or, in the digital world, let's take a look at some of the music software that we look at. This is a pretty typical way, a pretty typical piece of music software when we open it up. We open it up and what do we see? A blank page, an empty canvas. And for a lot of students and novices, it takes a lot of confidence to make that first stroke on the canvas, or to spend time and to take the melodies they hear in their hand and work through those interfaces, because it can be intimidating to start from a blank slate. Yet these are the metaphors, these are the structures that are often presented to teachers and students in particular. And what do we do to get started? We often combine them both. We'll put a piano up on there for that space to be that entry point. And as a result, I've seen a lot of students. I'm a former middle school music teacher, and I would see students play around with this and then move on to other things because they would get intimidated by this complexity. But why is this complexity there? Because a lot of the technologies that are developed and marketed and sold to students and teachers and novices were designed by experts for experts. They're designed for that and then marketed and sold down to schools and classrooms. Same thing for curricula. Projects are developed by rock star teachers whose pedagogical approaches are hard to bundle together in a box and move forward with that. And so in this context, you have software and technology tools that are designed for students and teachers, but not with them. And that's what our lab tries to do. We're creating a space where students and young people and nonprofits and artists come together in the collaborative design of solutions and technologies to reduce the barriers for creative expression. And I'm excited to share with you today some of the emerging tools that we're working on with our cultural partners, with students, and then I'll end with some stories from students we're working with who are taking our design processes and applying them to real-world problems and challenges that they're identifying. So the key elements that are at the core of a lot of what we're working on is the ethos of play. How can we draw on playful pedagogies and playful experiences to make and create music we love? How can we create opportunities to tinker with that music and to make it our own and to be curious, not to just take in a tradition and to explore that, but to actually be more creative and curious with these tools? So one of the interfaces we're starting with is actually in partnership here in Detroit with the Detroit Chamber Music Society. And we're working with the Aeolus String Quartet to design ways that students can get to know the musicians and the perspectives of the musicians before they come to a concert. And also to play with that music so that when they have that live concert experience, they have the opportunity to know that music better, to know those musicians, and hopefully go forward. So what you're seeing here is I'll hit play. I'll bring up the volume here. This is a recording from the cellist's perspective. He's wearing a GoPro camera and special binaural headphone microphones that if we were all wearing headphones, we would hear his sound in 3D, so you can literally step inside the perspective of the musician as he or she is playing. What does that sound like from their seat? Not out from the audience, but right to their own ears. You can step inside this, and not just with chamber music, but with popular musicians and jazz and entire orchestras, to step inside that as a pedagogical tool to hear the sounds as musicians hear them. And then we'll take that material and create it into a playful experience interface where kids can explore different instruments. So here, we have the string quartet again, but we can click and move some musicians to the back and move them around on a virtual stage so we can really listen to what's happening in one part or another. We can even move them from the left side to the right side, really isolate and hear and play and step inside. And from here, another couple interfaces we're working on that are really aimed at not necessarily stepping inside and being with the music, but are about opening up opportunities for creative expression. If you noticed before, I showed you that interface of the music workstation with a blank page. Well, the interfaces that we create deliberately start with music present, because it's much easier to start with that present music and move from there. This is our Groove Pizza, which came out of a master's project and named by some students we were working with, is a playful interface to explore rhythm. I'll hit it here so you can hear. Rather than looking at rhythm and notation, we're looking at it in these circles moving through. We can add toppings and remove toppings, play around with it, add labels like numbers. We can adjust. Here we've been working a lot with math teachers as well, so they wanted degree mode. We can add fractions and radians, and so all of these projects are developed with students and teachers, not just music, but also classroom teachers, and we're adding these features together. We can go in and click on the images and see the inner symmetry, the patterns, and then add in pepperoni or remove the green peppers and look at patterns of symmetry and musical sound. We can drop in a music beat from a song that we know. All of these are techniques that we can use to help make the musical experience more relevant to the students and really start looking at some of these beautiful patterns that emerge within the music we hear every day and play with them and transform them. Looking here, what are we pulling up here now? Walk This Way, famous Aerosmith tune. And then taking it and rotating the pattern to see how that might change the interface. So again, creating these playful ways of stepping inside music, playing with it. And before I talked to you about the piano interface and how it can sometimes be intimidating to beginners, well, what if we started with looking at the computer keyboard as an interface? What possibilities might that afford? What might be new ways just by looking at that? So one of the new interfaces we've been creating is an interface we call the accordion, or the QWERTY accordion, where we map it onto music, choose a scale, play around just with that, play chords horizontally or vertically. The keyboard moves in these wonderful diagonals from the numbers at the top so we can play chords. We don't have to be in major. We could put it into a blues scale and play a little blues riff and label the notes. And as a result, kids are then playing with patterns and shapes and gestures, not limited. Or we can drop in our favorite YouTube video and play along with the video. Step inside, improvise. So with these kinds of interfaces, it opens up new possibilities for stepping inside the music we love. And when I was a former middle school music teacher just down the road from here, my students wanted nothing more than to take their favorite song on the radio, sing along with it, take the vocalist, bring their volume down, add drums, actually work directly with the recordings that they loved. They didn't want to play around with a sound-alike. They didn't want to play around with a MIDI version. They wanted to play with the real thing. And we're now starting to see labels and artists making music available in new formats like multi-tracks or in these interfaces that we're building with the accordion so that kids can be expressive with that as the initial step to hopefully help motivate them to continue and play and work with the music they love. And from here, you've seen these interfaces are things that have come out of these collaborations, but we wanted to create a space where students and teachers could come together and actually not design for youth, but design with youth. And so the project I'm sharing here, and I'll finish out with, is a project we call Smart Bomb Labs. And we started this summer with 4 teams of middle school and high school teachers and students who started with a design process. They chose an audience they wanted to get to know. And what were some of those audiences' pain points and challenges? And through design and iteration and building and working with our team, they were able to create solutions. And I want to share with you a short video that walks you through some of their reactions and takeaways from the process, and then we'll conclude from there.
My experience was good because I had met a lot of people, and a lot of people that are the same, that do the same thing that I do.
It's anything that I say that I would learn through Smart Bomb, through the whole experience, through the whole fellowship, is that the people that they tried hard to make it an open space for everybody, regardless of whether you're a student or not. Where it is possible for teachers and students to have the open space, but there is no hierarchy where everybody's equal.
So the question is, what are we really looking for in education when it comes to inspiring students to become innovative, to create? And what we're seeing is there's this great opportunity to bring together higher education, K through 12 schools, and startups, and create a space where they can collaborate and solve real-world problems.
It's really impacted me in a great way by letting me understand more about what I have ahead moving on in like projects and things like that, and it just helps me and my colleagues more about understanding a problem and understanding a situation and how I can help fix that.
I'm kind of a little bit antisocial, and so whenever I get around people, I get a little quiet or shy or something like that. But the Smart Bomb has impacted me a whole lot because they don't make me talk to people. I actually want to talk to people. Good peer pressure. Good peer pressure. It's like people around me are talking, but it makes me want to talk too.
It really has changed me as a person, looking back, because it showed me different ways to think and different ways to understand different people and different situations.
And so what you see here is a photo of one of the teams here, and I just want to highlight some of the kinds of projects that can come out of this kind of process when we create a space for students to identify challenges and support them in finding solutions. Their solution is called Artillo, and it's a portmanteau of art and pillow. And it came from, they had some students they were working with who had cerebral palsy and loved to draw. And they were working with this iPad app for drawing, but what they noticed is that there was a lot of time and frustration in going back and choosing the different paintbrushes, choosing the different tools. It was great once they had a tool selected, but that process was there. So they designed this pillow and they embedded sensors and wireless so that subtle head movements would then switch the palette. So they would speed up their process of creating. And what I'd love you to kind of take away from this is to, if you're a designer, if you're a technologist, if you're an educator, find spaces where you can support your students to make something, listen to what they can create, and really just find an opportunity to listen, to create a space. Maybe it's after work, maybe it's after school, maybe it's somewhere in the community. But our students have so many wonderful ideas and have such a unique take on the world. And it's so important to give them opportunities to be part of the solution finding and creation process. So please join us in making some music, creating some new tools, and being creative together. Thank you very much.